The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back. We really are so glad that you're here. Welcome to the Marketing with Purpose Kit. This is a series of the Bliss Business Podcast where we explore what really takes, what it really takes for marketing leaders to create impact that goes beyond the numbers, because we know that that is really critical. I'm Mike Liskey, your host, and in each episode, we sit down with marketing leaders to explore their leadership approach and strategies that are really driving performance and resonate with their audience. Together with them, we'll dive into what's working, what's not, and really how purpose and empathy can transform the way that a brand connects with people. So let's get started. Today, I am so delighted to be joined by Laura Baker. You may know her as the Chief Marketing Officer of Weedman. Now, Laura is a results marketing leader known for deeply understanding customer needs, simplifying complex challenges, which we know as marketers, we have many of those today, and building strategies that drive sustainable revenue and growth. Now, her experience spans a number of different areas: dealer-owned, franchise-owned, even corporate-owned, and independent business models that have really given her a unique ability to influence adoption and alignment across diverse organizations. And specifically at Weedman, Laura oversees the marketing portfolio for North America's fastest growing franchise lawn care company. And this number is astounding. They're serving more than 775,000 loyal customers across 1,000 territories. And with a strong focus on performance-based analytics and compelling creative, which if you haven't had a chance to see the Weedman for the Win campaign, check it out on YouTube. You can see some of those videos. They're really amazing. And so with that creative, she leads marketing efforts designed to optimize media spend and create customers for life. And so we're really going to explore today the topic of turning marketing into a revenue engine. And so I'm so excited to dive in to this strategy discussion with you, dive into the data and even leadership approach, Laura, that you bring so that we can help others continue to grow. Welcome to our show, Laura.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thanks for the introduction, long introduction. Really appreciate it and really glad to be here with you. So thank you.
Absolutely. No, and as I was preparing for it, I was going through it. I was thinking, she has such a deep background that today's going to be a great show. So Laura, maybe before we dive into all things marketing, let's just discuss, I'd love to hear, why was the turning marketing into a revenue engine the topic you chose to explore with us today?
So I think, Mike, the reason that I picked this topic is because I think, marketing has come under scrutiny lately in terms of, what's its role in the organization. And, as more and more things, lend themselves to performance-based advertising and AI and being efficient, I think there's more pressure on marketing than ever before. And, many organizations I've worked in, marketing is often seen as a luxury and an expense line. And,
right.
When times get tough, it's like, oh, let's look to the marketing budget. There's only two places to cut: headcount and marketing.
Yeah.
So, that has, really created a position where marketers are, I would say, constantly defending and advocating for themselves in terms of what marketing can do and what marketing brings to the business. And so, when I think about the revenue aspect, that's where marketers need to lean in, that we're this revenue generating portion of the business, and that without us, that falls to the wayside, and that we have so much measurement now that we can prove it out. I can tell you what the cost per lead is. I can tell you what the cost per sale is. I can tell you many, many things about the business. And so demonstrating performance and, a return on investment is more important than ever in marketing.
Yeah, for sure. Now we do know which 50% of the marketing budget is working and isn't working, right? So true. So true. So Laura, let's dive into this topic a little bit deeper. I'm really curious to find out what's worked best, would you say, for helping to turn marketing, the perception of marketing, into that revenue driver at say, your company, and maybe where do you even see some gaps where there's still more work to do?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned before, there's so much on the analytics side. We can measure absolutely everything that happens with a customer and right through that journey. And, we can attribute sales to those marketing channels. I think a gap definitely that exists is that it's not single attribution, right? There are multi touches that have happened, to get a customer to the end. And one of the things I've always seen in my career is when you ask someone, "Oh, how did you hear about us?" They'll always say TV ad. And, we're not running any television or never have run any television. And they say they saw it on a TV. So, the customer doesn't think, "Oh, I'm going to buy this product today. And that's because I saw an ad on Meta. And then I, got a text from your company. And then I got 4 emails, 3 of which I opened and 1 I didn't and 1 I clicked through." That's not how the customer thinks, right? We're creating in marketing a feeling and a connection to be, on that top of mind awareness funnel and, in their consideration set. So that's where, measurement is great, but it can be a little tricky too. Like, you can't put all your stock in just the bottom line number of those, especially on the performance channels, because you'll lose focus on the customer and building the brand. And that is risky business. And those things can be measured too, but less to the full extent. I think something really exciting that we're working on right now at Weedman is taking all the offline leads and serving them back to Meta and Google to enhance, what leads they're like, where they're targeting, and how those, just making sure the quality of those leads is better and better, because we're able to tell them what happened when a customer called us or we called a customer, and did that close? What was the closing rate? What did they look like? And feeding that back. So getting the offline and the online measurement together has been tricky, but there are just so many tools out there now that are making that really easy, I want to say. But also easier, but also expensive in some way as well. So, when I look at our own marketing budget, you see more and more of our marketing budget funding technologies and tools that allow us these insights. And, then you have to be careful not to go too far, because at the end of the day, you need this performance-based advertising out there to, generate new leads. So that's kind of been an interesting kind of evolution on how you can, really use analytics to drive sales and, understand exactly what's going on in the customer journey.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. The responsibility has certainly changed during the lifetime of our careers. So I'm glad to really hear you mention that. And very true, right? If you're only focused on the funnel being this narrow, it's not going to expand and eventually will run out. You do have to, put focus on making sure that you're feeding other parts of the funnel so that your funnel stays, nice and wide.
Feed the funnel. Sorry, I was just going to say.
No, go ahead.
We did this very interesting exercise of really looking at how often our brand is searched, our name is searched compared to our competitors, to really understand how full is our funnel. And, that really provides the kind of data to say, we're going to have to spend more in brand advertising so that our name is out there, so that even if they're searching our competitor, when they see it come up, that they're like, I know Weedman, and they're interested enough to click. So that's been helpful to really kind of understand where you sit compared to your competitors, especially in a small business that might not have all of the, research tools at their fingertips to do a lot of first-party research to understand what's going on with their own customers and competitive customers as well.
You're absolutely right about that. And if for the marketers out there, if you haven't done a brand lift study, or if you continue to get the pushback on why are we spending so much on brand, looking at your branded keyword search is a great way to be able to make the case for why we need to invest into our own brand.
Absolutely.
So now, Laura, I'd like to maybe dive into strategy and growth. And we know that sometimes it's, as you almost sort of mentioned, it's difficult to maintain a bridge between both. Certainly, CMOs are often pulled between near-term campaign results and also maintaining that brand for the long term. So how have you been able to ensure that your marketing strategy stays, both aligned with, the company has growth plans that we need to meet, but then also, keeping an eye towards the long term and maybe, reducing some of the friction points between those two?
For sure. I think the biggest thing is about communication of the value of both of those pieces. So while one may not show these short-term revenue gains, it does lead itself to that long-term profitability of the company.
Right.
And something that I talk about, and maybe you're familiar with too, is there was this great study done out of the UK called The Long and the Short of It. And what they did was they measured top brands for, I feel like, at least 50 years and how they performed over time. And, what they measured is that the short-term performance, so you put a campaign out there or, just your bottom of the funnel conversion tactics,
right.
You get a bump and then it goes back down. You get a bump and then it goes back down. And maybe it doesn't go, down to that floor that it was at before. But when you add brand advertising, what you see is this beautiful line of profitability growth, long-term sustainable profitability growth. So what they recommend is a 60-40 split, 60% on brand, 40% on performance. I've struggled to achieve that in my career, but that really hasn't happened yet, that nirvana state.
Yeah.
But it's something to keep in mind, I guess, as a North Star that that is, a very proven way of, building that long-term profitability and getting yourself out of the quick hit, that today's sales, tomorrow's sales. We're building something for the future. We're not in this business for 1 year. We're in this business for hundreds of years. And so, just talking about that and making sure people understand how they both play together, and really to keep the budget in check in that way. So, how can you do a small, sizable, or, small pilot with a few markets with brand advertising, build on that over time to prove it out. You might not see it in year one, but hopefully you're going to start to see something in year two. And then, eventually you grow that to be, a national or international campaign, and you already have the data inside to prove that that is the winning formula for long-term profitability. And
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And we, when we get down to brass tacks, sometimes even with our own clients for our marketing agency, looking at a metric like cost of acquisition over lifetime value is paramount to that. And even splitting out the lifetime value of customers that are coming only from those performance tactics versus the lifetime value of those, as you say, are more familiar with the brand, have a relationship with the brand. The numbers, pair out that lifetime value is certainly, much longer.
For sure. And I think also too, just to add to that, when you really understand the lifetime value of your customer, it helps you to determine how much you can invest in the acquisition methods, right, to acquire that customer. And, sometimes in the franchising world, you'll see a franchise, trying to, manage their bottom line. Of course, they need to do that. But they're selling themselves short in terms of, understanding our ability to service a customer so well that they come back year after year after year. Yeah. And so they could acquire faster if, they really understood that lifetime value piece of the puzzle.
Yep, for sure. And we say all the time, it's so much harder to get a new customer than to keep a customer. And you're absolutely right. So one of the things I'd like to dive into, and a topic that we know contributes greatly to what we've just been talking about, customer loyalty and advocacy, is leading with purpose. And sometimes with a brand, right, we have certain pressures. There may be high stakes situations like, say, a brand crisis or maybe a market downturn. So I'm kind of curious, more in terms of your leadership and with your team and then internally within the organization, how have you been able to, say, maintain the focus on purpose and maintaining empathy while still, being able to make some, quick decisions in sometimes those difficult, challenging environments?
For sure. I've definitely been there and experienced that more than a few times.
Your fair share, yeah.
And I think, when I think about empathy, I really do think about communication. It really comes down to great communication with your teams. And, sometimes we want to act so quick in the moment. But if we don't communicate to our teams what we're doing, why we're thinking that, get their ideas, or even telling, sometimes you're telling, but to really communicate the why behind it, you're never going to have their buy-in. And, at the end of the day, we're human. So when projects get canceled or budgets get cut, people on our teams, they feel uneasy. They feel uneasy about the future of their job, their role, the company. They might start to think people are looking at them all the time and, they're in the hot seat. So it really is, as a leader, our role to bring clarity and calm while making those tough, quick decisions. Yeah. And the way to do that is to communicate and maybe over communicate to make sure people understand the why behind it and, how that decision is actually going to make it easier into the future or change something into the future that's going to help us to win as a business. So yeah, definitely leaning into communication, I think is key for adjusting our marketing plans and getting us through a crisis for sure.
So true. Yeah, I'd say professionally and personally, right? Communication could solve so many of our problems, and you're absolutely right about the why behind it, so that people feel like they're trusted, right, with understanding a situation. So when you have to bring in your experience, say, a new product to market, or you're even entering a new market, say with Weedman in the franchise organization, what has been, would you say, was some of the most effective ways for you to align across teams, say like sales, service, and even product? Like what has really helped create alignment? And then even maybe like, where do you sometimes anticipate alignment to break down?
Sure. So there's definitely, all of these teams come from different places in terms of what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve. So, as a marketer, trying to root everything that we do back to the customer. If you have customer personas that you have built about who is this product for, or information about the segment and, what are their lives like, and really adding like color so people understand the target customer. And who they are and how many of them there are and where they are is really important. And so if you stay focused on the customer, most of those, sales teams, product teams, they understand that, at the end of the day, we need customers. Yeah. And so, this is where we're going. I would say like one of the biggest breakdowns I have seen is, in marketing, you're managing, you might be managing many different products or services in that budget. Yeah. And really helping them understand what that marketing allocation is going to be for their product or service. Yeah. Because it's right that we advocate for ourselves. So, I think of a product manager. Well, they're just interested in their product all day. They're paid to think about their product and not think about their neighbors' products. Right. Because they have, a goal that they're trying to achieve. But at the same time, 100% of our marketing budget cannot go into that one product. So really being upfront with what is the marketing spend, what are the channels that we're going to be utilizing to create that awareness and consideration, and then go into more of that performance piece of the advertising. It's really important that they understand that upfront, and that as a marketer, you need to demonstrate ROI. So as you can share that with them and they can see how that marketing is returning, good marketing definitely can have an unlimited budget, right? So If you can prove out that, you're returning 3-to-1 or even 2-to-1, it's easy to get, more cash to invest in those tactics and channels. So I think it really, again, comes down to communication, to make sure that you're all on the same page before you, set out to launch a new product, and that, your counterparts understand the marketing channels and their role. Why are we using these channels? Why do we have this budget set aside for this campaign or product?
Yeah, right. And based on the data, things could shift around. But I love that point about, really without a customer, we don't have a company.
For sure.
And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
That's many times our North Star. Speaking of customers, I'm actually kind of curious, now that we do have all this data, sometimes the data tells us to do something very specific. But has there been a time where maybe something that you've heard from a customer, or maybe some customer data influence the direction of, say, a campaign? And I'm kind of curious maybe what that taught you between the balance of intuition and analytics.
Yes, I think, sometimes, I would say sometimes now with all the data, you're almost, your intuition is almost fighting against the data sometimes, right? You're like, oh, the data is showing me all of those things, but that's not what I think, or that's not what I believe in my mind.
Right.
Sometimes I think what a good idea there is to pause and actually talk to some customers. Even if you can't set up focus groups, talk to your sales teams and get a few of their best customers or their noisiest customers, and just have some conversations with them to root yourself back into the customer, and making sure you understand the value you're bringing them as a brand and as a company in what they're doing. I'm going to twist your question a little bit on its head, and I'm going to tell you about a marketing blunder that taught me a very valuable lesson.
We love stories.
So I have worked with some fabulous ad agencies, and at one of the companies that I worked for, the brand actually lived in the rural parts of Canada, not in any major cities, and you wouldn't even call it suburban, like truly rural.
Wow.
And one of our ad agencies had a brilliant idea to help us launch a new paint, our color of the year beauty tone paint. And the color of the year was called Midnight Flora.
Okay.
And there happened to be this huge art installation project going on in Toronto, and it's called Nuit Blanche, and it happens every year. And basically it's an overnight art affair. Wow. Where you stay up all night and you go to these different art installations, and they're all over the city. And so we ended up launching our new paint color with an art installation because it was Nuit Blanche. Our color of the year was Midnight Flora. It seemed like the perfect match.
Yep.
And so that was kind of our PR launch of the paint color. And it really, fell flat, and it didn't resonate with our franchisees at all, because, their customers and even them themselves, not on the art scene, in terms of, their everyday lives and what's important to them and what's important to our customer. And it really just, taught me to stay rooted in the customer and how, what is that customer's life like, and try to put yourself into their shoes.
Right.
And don't get too caught up on the other end of things, where things just, where a campaign seems like a brilliant idea that you love so much, but it's not, it might not land, or it's not even going to be seen by target audience. So it's kind of the reverse of what you were talking about.
Sure.
But it definitely taught me, a hard lesson about campaigns and making sure that we're staying very in tune with the customer.
Yes. Yeah, great point, right? Because, as marketers, we love the creative side, and you could get led down perhaps, a wrong track, but that's so true. Laura, just maybe sort of quickly, want to talk a little bit about developing talent. obviously you're only as good, or people are your most important asset, certainly on the marketing team. So I'm kind of curious, like, what's been your approach to help develop that talent?
Yes. I would say this is the one thing in my career that I love the most, in terms of people and, identifying people's strengths. I've used a lot the Clifton Strengths Finder tool.
Okay.
It's a quick online tool. I think it's maybe $30. And what it highlights is actually your top 5 strengths. They fall into these 4 different buckets, and it really pinpoints what you're good at. I think when you're in an organization, and definitely as I've been led over the years of my career, we spend a lot of time talking about the things that you could improve. You're not good at this. This project failed because your project management skills were not up to snuff, or you're not good at ROI calculations and you need to take a math class. Like all of these things, they're always hitting on areas of improvement.
Right.
And what Clifton Strengths really taught me is that you should lean into your strengths. Mm-hmm. How do you look for opportunities to accelerate and utilize those natural talents that you have? And so as a leader, when you're putting together a marketing team, it's really easy for me to hire myself over and over and over again. I hire this, bubbly talker who can, sell snow to Eskimos.
Right.
But then I don't have, the strategic person on my team or the analytical person on my team. I have a great communicator, but I already had that once.
Right.
And so, it really helps you look at your teams in this way that we need to put our teams together by tapping the different strengths and talents of people. So it's a great tool when you're, trying to build, let's say, a project team internally for, some special project that you're launching. How do you get that vast array of strengths in one room? Because together they'll be really mighty. And I think one of the other things that I'm really focused on developing talent is, and balancing that out with them achieving performance goals, is to really limit a team member's number of goals. Limit it to 3 to 4 objectives for the year.
Yeah.
Spend time to ensure that they're the right deliverables to achieve the goals, and then ensure the team member understands how these align to the company's goals.
Right.
And, once you're kind of set on that, then you can teach ruthless prioritization.
Right.
And encourage your team to push back. So every hour you're working on something else means it's 1 hour less that you're working on your key priorities. So if you can, have your team kind of pushing back on you to say, well, if you want me to do this, then I'm not going to be achieving the 3 or 4 items that we set out as the main goals for the year to help the company's performance. Yeah. And I think, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No. Go ahead. I was just going to say that's so true.
Yeah. And the last part of that, I think, in managing people and teams is to be kind, not nice. Nice is, I actually saw something this morning. He said, nice is not telling someone they have food in between their teeth. Kind is telling them they have food in between their teeth. Right. Yeah. Because, they're going out in the world and, it's embarrassing for them. So I love that distinction of being kind and not nice. So, without giving people constructive feedback, they won't develop. And a drive to improve is ingrained in humans. Humans want to achieve. They want to get better. They want to be recognized. They want to be seen. And so, when I think about that, there's kind of 2 scenarios I think about. One is, as a leader, think back to your favorite teacher in grade school. Yep. And that teacher is probably someone that you knew cared about you very deeply, and they wanted you to succeed. And you probably did, because they cared so deeply in your development. You achieved. And I've seen this in my own children, when neither of my kids like math, but when a teacher has really cared so deeply about my child, they have done better in math. They thrive. And so that's like, just a huge opportunity. And I'll give you another example. That I give my team, like an urgent deadline. So let's say it's Friday at 4:30 and your leader has asked you to produce something, ASAP. Being nice is doing it yourself, right? You don't want to bother anyone on your team. You can go sift through files and, work on a project to make it happen and get the information that's needed.
Sure.
But kindness is asking your team for help because they'll feel valued. They learn about the real pressures in the business, right? You're not keeping them away from how a business is really operating. That, the clock sometimes never
stops.
It's not the business. Yeah, it's not this 9 to 5 thing.
Right.
The business is still carrying on all the time. And then appreciating what they've done to help you gives people incredible fulfillment and work satisfaction. And, we operate in a world where we can't give people endless amount of bonuses and raises. So you've got to look for these meaningful opportunities where you engage your team and then appreciate and value so much what they do and what they bring to the table.
For sure, right? I mean, they're an important stakeholder. If there's something you can do to surprise and delight them, that's fantastic. And I'd say having a great leader. But Laura, we're at our final question. I think it's also the most important one, certainly for us as a marketing agency focused on purpose and empathy. So when you think really about the role that marketing plays in your company now and even in the future, what's your sense of the role that purpose and empathy play in creating sort of genuine resonance?
I think it's everything. You have to. What is that North Star? And I'll give you maybe a little example of something at Weedman.
That's perfect.
So, you talked earlier about our external tagline, but our internal tagline is "Yard Harder," and
love that.
It speaks so much to we're going to make that yard look like the best one on the street. We're going to outperform and outshine our competitors. And it has given the company and all the people work within it, from the technician to the CFO, this rallying cry around what is our purpose. Our purpose is to really give our customers such care and help them enjoy their outdoor environment and take full advantage and enjoy their families and their friends in their outdoor spaces and be proud of their outdoor space. And so when you can get everyone on that same page and have that North Star and are aligned on what is the purpose, so many other things become easier to talk about in terms of, why are we doing something or why are we not doing something? And, when I think about marketing's role in the company and over the long haul, it really is to make sure that everything we do stays rooted in our customer. You said it earlier, without them, we have no business. And so how are we understanding what that customer's needs are? How is that customer changing over time? I just read this piece about, young people, not valuing home ownership like we did in back in the day. It was all about, okay, when can I get my first house? And, all of those things. So, that's going to play a major role in Weedman in terms of, the home ownership and what that home looks like over time. So it's marketing's role to bring that all to the forefront so that product teams and sales teams and the CEO can be thinking about the future and not just, today's customer and today's dollar. So I think, that's really, really important. And I think when marketing feels that, and I say the weight of that, that's a good thing, and that makes sure that we'll continue to kind of share that in the organization and be accountable and be responsible for always having the customers back and making sure we're doing the right thing for our customers to build that lifetime value.
Yeah, we would certainly agree. And I love that point about you're going to know your yeses and you're going to know your nos much faster, centered around purpose and being able to achieve things that are bigger than ourselves. So Laura, this has been such a valuable conversation. What a wealth of insight that you were able to give to our audience today. Thank you also to our audience for joining us on the Marketing with Purpose series podcast. It's part of the Bliss Business Podcast. And I hope really that today's conversation sparked new ideas for how you can align strategy, execution, and purpose in the work that you're doing as well. And if you found, say, the discussion that we've had today valuable, please, subscribe and as well share it with others to keep this conversation going. Because remember this, right? Great marketing doesn't just sell, it really does serve. And so we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.